Question 7 reads, discuss the factors responsible for the decline of Buddhism in India. Now, quite a straightforward question, this one. The demand is to discuss the factors responsible for the decline of Buddhism, right? Since Buddhism, right from its emergence, had emerged as an extremely popular religious as well as social movement, its decline towards the beginning of the 12th century CE, 13th century CE, appears to be almost a surprising, if not shocking development, right? And as a result, it has attracted a great degree of historical curiosity to understand the true nature of the decline of Buddhism. And early on, there was a consensus among a particular group of historians, led by historians such as R.G. Bhandarkar, that it was a sudden development. Brought about by Islamic invasions and the beginning of Turkish rule. The religious policy of the early Islamic rulers, the Turkish warlords who established sovereignty over North India from around 1206 onwards, that was to persecute all non-co-religionists, including Buddhists. Buddhism, in fact, was a target of these early Islamic invaders, and the large-scale persecution, forcible conversions, massacres, and destruction of monasteries and sites of worship caused the sudden decline of Buddhism around the early 13th century. Right? However, later, some other historians have given a different explanation regarding the decline of Buddhism. They have said that the decline of Buddhism was neither sudden nor unexpected. Right? And it was the problems within Buddhism that were responsible for precipitating its decline. Okay? So these internal problems had acted towards causing the decline of Buddhism over a long period. So it was a gradual process. They also hold that apart from the Islamic invasions towards the early 13th century, there were a number of other external problems or other external causes which also contributed towards the decline of Buddhism. And in fact, ये जो इस्लामिक इन्वेजन्स हैं, they simply dealt the final blow to Buddhism in India. By this point of time, the Buddhist community in India was a, you can say, hollow shell of its former self. It did not have the same strength and vitality of early Buddhism. It had lost its reformative appeal as well, right? And since it was rotten from within, since it was hollow from within, even a weak breeze could have toppled the facade. And the Islamic invasions were more like a torrent, more like a solid gust, right? And thus, it was neither sudden nor unexpected that Buddhism declined in India and almost ended virtually towards the beginning of the 13th century. ठीक है, सो ये हमको अपने आंसर में कवर करना है. हाउ शुड वी स्टार्ट दिस आंसर? शुरुआत में क्या लिखना चाहिए? इंट्रोडक्शन में वी कैन सिंपली से दैट देयर इज a difference in the way in which the earlier historians interpreted this issue, and more recently the perspective has changed, right? So यहाँ पे क्या बताना चाहिए? That the disappearance of Buddhism from its original homeland has caused a great deal of historical commotion. Historians like R.G. Bhandarkar consider it to be a sudden and unexpected development due to religious persecution at the hands of early Islamic invaders. ठीक है? So this you have established. Now in the next portion, you need to cover the impact of early Islamic invasions on Buddhism. लिखो. The Turkish invaders led by Muhammad Ghori adopted a policy of ruthless persecution towards Buddhists. Their invasions and conquests entailed widespread destruction of Buddhist monasteries and uh, forcible religious conversions. You can cite examples over here. For example, the Nalanda and Vikramshila Buddhist Mahaviharas were in fact destroyed by one of the generals of Muhammad Ghori. His name was Ikhtiaruddin Muhammad bin Bakhtiyar Khilji, better known as Bakhtiyar Khilji. Okay? Another example you can cite, one of the earliest mosques in North India, that is the अढ़ाई दिन का झोपड़ा, constructed during the reign of Qutbuddin Aibak, was in fact formerly a Buddhist shrine or a Buddhist monastery. Okay. Further, Buddhism at this point of time was being propped up through royal patronage by a number of Hindu rulers, by a number of Rajput rulers. However, with the onset of Islamic rule, this patronage was also lost. So, loss of royal patronage with the decline of Rajput rule starved this monasteries and establishment of the much needed sustenance that they required to survive. And according to R.G. Bhandarkar, it was this factor that played the most significant role. However, this is not the complete picture. So, next section mein we need to talk about other factors, both internal and external. Right now, there's a famous American essayist, or there was a famous American essayist, William Durant. One of his remarks makes perfect sense when we are thinking about the issue of the decline of Buddhism. इन्होंने बोला that No great civilization can be destroyed from without unless it is decayed from within. Now, एग्जैक्ट कोट नहीं है, मुझे याद नहीं है, बट सेंटिमेंट यही है, ठीक है। तो आई एम पैराफ्रेजिंग ओवर हियर। आप लोग गूगल पे देख सकते हैं एग्जैक्ट फ्रेज क्या था एंड उसका नोट ले सकते हैं। एक फिल्म देखी होगी, हो सकता है आप लोगों ने, अपोकलिप्टो। तो जो उसका प्रोलॉग है उसमें ये वाला जो कोटेशन है वो आता है, राइट, अपोकलिप्टो में। एंड दैट फिल्म इज रिगार्डिंग द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द डिक्लाइन ऑफ द Incas or the sorry Aztec civilization in South America and Latin America with the onset of Spanish conquistadors, right? तो उसके बारे में है। It has tried to capture that जो Spanish conquest है that was no mere accident। कोई ऐसा नहीं है that it was fated to happen। Problems existed within the Aztec society because of which their defeat to the Spanish conquistadors became almost inevitable. And same can be said about Buddhism also, that Buddhism used to be a great movement. It was no longer that, right? So, what are the elements associated with the evolution of Buddhism which fit into this narrative? कि भाई एक जमाने में बहुत पावरफुल रहा होगा, लेकिन अब वो स्ट्रेंथ, वाइटैलिटी, लाइफ जा चुका था। तो इट हैड बिकम अ हॉलो शेल ऑफ इट्स फॉर्मर सेल्फ। इट वाज लाइफलेस। तो बुद्धिज्म had lost its unique identity and reformist appeal। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, कैसे? One of the causes was the adoption of Sanskrit as the main medium of instruction and literary discourse। तो पहले प्राकृत के ऊपर सारे डिस्कोर्स होता था, अब संस्कृत अडॉप्ट हो गया था। With the emergence of Mahayana Buddhism, some negative trends had emerged, such as idol worship, priestly domination in the religious sphere, religious exclusivism, the ritualization of Buddhist worship, and trends such as corruption within the Sangha and values, including the one that religious merit or punya can be transferred from one person to the other. So, through your acts of charity, piety, etc., donation towards the Sangha, you can purchase punya or the grace of Buddha, not only for yourself, but for others around you, right? So it could be your children, your spouse, your ancestors, your future generations, etc. So transference of religious merit and sale of indulgence. कि मान लीजिए you have committed some sin that is making you feel uncomfortable, that is pinching your conscience. Simply go to the Sangha, visit a priest, and put 500 rupee note, crisp 500 rupee note in the Dan Peti or Dan Patra, right? And the priest is then going to absolve you of all your sins. So you can go back without a guilty conscience. So इसको बोलते हैं sale of indulgence. So Buddhism had in fact lost its original appeal, and as a result it longer attracted the groups that it used to. Okay, people were not in favor of following Buddhism any longer. So that is the idea over here. Apart from this, certain external factors, apart from the early Islamic invasions, were also responsible. जैसे कि the revival of Hinduism under the reformist bhakti movement, and due to the efforts of philosophers like Shankaracharya. Okay? So with bhakti, Brahmanism solved many of the problems that it was facing towards the end of the later Vedic age. The Bhakti movement was more, you can say, liberal, democratic, accepting of all groups. It democratized the religious landscape. It allowed for a personal relationship to exist between the devotee and God without need of priestly intermediation, and it also popularized the Brahmanical religion by through spreading of legendary myths about gods and goddesses. जो पुरानिक stories हैं, they played a very important role in this regard. And with Shankaracharya, he not only gave a philosophical response to Buddhism, he also philosophically revived the Vedic, you can say, tradition. And not only that, he found a way to seamlessly blend the Vedic religious tradition with the new powerful Bhakti tradition. Right? So, इसकी वजह से Hinduism became popular once again. एंड हिंदुइज्म में और भक्ति के साथ एक आइडिया जुड़ा हुआ था नोन एज अवतारवाद. राइट, दिस इज belief in the idea of incarnation and reincarnation. According to this idea, not only human beings are born and die and born again, but gods and goddesses also take various avatars, various incarnations. One of the prominent bhakti gods was Vishnu. कितने अवतार विष्णु के? 10 अवतार. Who is the 10th अवतार? फ्यूचर में जो होने वाला है, कल्कि, राइट. बट 9th वाले कौन है? कुछ ट्रेडिशन में माना जाता है कि इट इज बलराम, और कुछ ट्रेडिशन में माना जाता है दैट इट वाज गौतम बुद्धा हिमसेल्फ. ठीक है. Now, this was a real stroke of genius at the part of the proponents of Vaishnavism. क्या किया इन्होंने? ऑटोमेटिकली जितने भी बुद्धिज्म के फॉलोअर्स थे उनको एनवेलप कर लिया अंडर द अम्ब्रेला ऑफ वैष्णविज्म. ठीक है. सो एंड सिंस बुद्धिज्म हैड ऑलरेडी लॉस्ट इट्स यूनिक आइडेंटिटी, किसी ने इसको प्रोटेस्ट भी नहीं किया. पीपल वर इन फैक्ट हैप्पी विद दिस डेवलपमेंट. राइट. अच्छा. देन Buddhism was a cult that had not remained confined to North India alone. South India में भी काफी popular हुआ था. However, with the emergence of Tamil Bhakti, Buddhism started declining rapidly. क्यों? Because unlike North Indian Bhakti, Tamil Bhakti में almost एक रिलीजियस फनाटिसिज्म हमको देखने के लिए मिलता है. इट इज अ वेरी इमोशनल, यू कैन से, movement, and love for God can always or can almost be associated with a type of militancy. ठीक है. So ये militancy would often translate to violence against all other cults. So Vaishnavites in Tamil Bhakti would express violence towards Shaivites vice versa, and इनका major target था हमेशा the heterodox sect. So both Buddhism as well as Jainism. And since Tamil Bhakti became immensely popular, तो भाई politically भी बहुत useful हो गया, right? And therefore the rulers of the Tamil region also started persecuting heterodox sects. So this policy was evident in the policy of the Cholas also and the rulers who followed them. तो Cholas onwards यहाँ पे इनका religious persecution होना शुरू हो जाता है. Further, in North India, from the early medieval age onwards, or Rajput, or during the Rajput period, as a result of the revival of Hinduism, Buddhism also experienced a loss of uh, royal patronage. ठीक है. तो ग्रेजुअली ये डिक्लाइन ऑलरेडी कर रहा था. एंड with the Islamic invasions, it was finally dealt its death blow. ठीक है. तो इस्लामिक इन्वेजन्स हम ये देख सकते हैं दैट दे वर नॉट द chief cause which resulted in the decline of Buddhism. Rather, they only served as the death blow. So, conclusion में हम क्या बोल सकते हैं? In the introduction, we had pointed out that a confusion exists, ना? That कि sudden and unexpected development था Buddhism का disappearance या फिर नहीं, right? So, conclusion में we can finally resolve this confusion, resolve this doubt. Was it a sudden and unexpected development? No. It was not a sudden or unexpected development. Rather, it was a gradual and inevitable process caused by the inability of Buddhism to adapt itself to the emerging realities. ठीक है, तो आइडिया यही है कि भाई कोई भी डिजीज किसी हेल्दी इंसान को उतना हार्म नहीं पहुंचा सकता जितना कि किसी इम्यूनिटी डेफिशिएंट इंसान को पहुंचा सकता है, राइट। कि अगर मान लीजिए एक तूफान आया और पेड़ गिर गया, तो इसका मतलब ये है दैट द ट्री वाज ऑलरेडी हॉलो, राइट। तो क्योंकि if had it been strong, had it been alive, had it been filled with vitality and vigor, तो हवा का झोंका इतनी आसानी से दरख्तों को नहीं उखाड़ सकता है। दैट इज द आइडिया ओवर हियर। क्लियर है? तो इस नोट पे हमें कंक्लूड करना है। बिल्कुल, तो इस नोट पे भी कंक्लूड कर सकते हैं कि भाई हिंदुस्तान में बुद्धिज्म डिक्लाइन इसलिए हुआ बिकॉज इट वाज अनएबल टू कीप अप विद द टाइम्स, इट लॉस्ट इट्स रिफॉर्मेटिव अपील। बट बाकी जगह पे सरवाइव किया, इनफैक्ट फ्लरिश किया, अभी तक कर रहा है। व्हाई? बिकॉज इट वाज एबल टू री इन्वेंट इटसेल्फ ओवर एंड ओवर अगेन। ठीक है, जहां पे भी नए विद चेंजिंग टाइम्स, विद चेंजिंग लोकेशंस, इट वाज एबल टू अडॉप्ट अ new identity and new focus. तो over there it remained vital, that is why it continued flourishing. यहाँ पे it became dormant and then declined. ठीक है, online students, I hope this was clear.